you so much, Shaun. Yeah, now we'll welcome Professor George Serafeim to provide some additional context.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Shaun, also for being here with us. So, as Erica graciously mentioned, my name is George Serafeim. I'm a professor at Harvard Business School. I teach there one of our most popular courses, which is called Reimagining Capitalism, Business and Big Problems. Many of the issues that Shaun touched on is issues that we touch in the course, which is the idea of how companies can actually provide solutions to many of the problems that we face around poverty, inequality, climate change, and so forth, and actually how all these problems interact with each other. Because the more poverty you have, the more inequality you have, the more you will have problems around environmental degradation and so forth. So it's a pleasure to have you here. And you mentioned something that I find very appealing. So one of the reasons why we created this course was to give people a sense of agency in business, that they can actually make a difference. I felt that for a very long time, people were going to very large organizations, even leading some of those organizations, and they felt that they had no agency. They couldn't change anything. So you dispute that claim, and I dispute that claim as well. But what made you believe in that in the first place? Because this is something that I think many young people in universities and courses, they should start having that agency, that they can make a difference. What made you feel that you have that agency?
You know, it really came from two sides. So one, I'll admit, it actually has worked out a little bit differently than I thought. Initially, when we started, I knew that, especially on the younger side, that there's an entire millennial movement around trying to have purpose through actions. And we really thought initially it would be really hammering and leveraging that. And then essentially a little bit more of pitching the marketing side of how you can leverage doing good. And so I'll admit, when we started, I was really assuming the younger person we're selling to, the more they would get it. But I've been completely surprised that, we almost have the luxury of anyone who doesn't care doesn't deal with us. Anyone who hears what it is and sees that there's a chance is who we attract to. And those have been people of all ages and various roles looking to do good. And, so, yeah, I'll admit it's now revealed itself that essentially we just find passionate advocates and then empower them to create change in their company. And this, honestly, is companies of every size, and to just find the people that genuinely care and make it easy to empower them. And ideally, the better we get at turning a champion into a true champion in their company, that just becomes the best career move you can do, or the business best practice to do something that's really making a positive change. And just the other thing, again, I never would have thought of as well, you just get so many people in large companies, they're just always assumed purpose wasn't an option. And when you introduce the concept of, would you like your company to be a part of this? Is this something you'd be proud to tell your children? Is often one of the biggest things that just changed, where a lot of people realize, I didn't know that was an option, which then for us opens a lot of doors of, well, let's bring that to life.
Talk to us a little bit about the impact that the plastic bag has had so far, right? Kind of like, because you said that technology enables you to actually quantify impact. And that's, in some sense, something that is very important for companies as well. There's a growing movement of more and more companies needing to report their impact in terms of for their customers, for the employees, for shareholders, and so forth. So tell us a little bit about how do you measure and how do you quantify your impact?
Yeah, it's definitely something we're transferring into. One of the beautiful things when we're starting everywhere with brand new systems, we essentially can kind of look, what's the best technology available today for where we need to go tomorrow? So in every region, we're going from what was a paper-based record-it system into using blockchain technology to have really that instant verification right at that point of exchange, where the app in real time can track exactly how much value someone received. And we'll continue to get creative, and we're even open sourcing the technology, crowdsourcing the development, so that we can take away, the speed I could design and mentally make something go, to really have the world and the communities saying, here's what this needs, here's where it needs to go. And yeah, we, especially just with the blockchain verified proof of delivery of impact, should be one of the world's most authentic delivery of promise systems. And this is where, even our system, where I say we can be a conduit, we could be a way that disaster relief aid is distributed, where we can prove that it was received. We can be a conduit for people trying to give programs in education. And again, ours is a free open source platform that anyone can use. And, I'm inspired to look at how can we not just be a verification source for our impact, but really any promise of impact. Just because, the world's so filled with issues that's happened that are so preventable that if we could just remove the question of how do I trust it, and that's an ongoing, continuous journey of just the entire brand, everything, it has to be trust first.
And central to the theory of plastic bank is the power of markets. In some sense, you're trying to create a market, right, for a good. How did that come to you, that actually markets are very powerful, you need to use incentive-based mechanism in order to generate change? Where is that coming from? Because so many other people are forming social enterprises and they're trying to do different things that don't rely on creating markets. Where is that coming from for you guys? Where did that come from?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest things, so David Katz, who came up with the concept of the plastic bank, has always been a career entrepreneur. I myself have been an entrepreneur, then an intrapreneur working with David. And I think sometimes with an entrepreneur's background focus, you start to see solutions as business solutions. And one of the learning lessons, again, that when we look at how do we bring dignity into something like recycling, and quite often, especially in these regions, you almost have just this defensiveness about charitable organizations, with not knocking anything to do with charities, but when someone's had the experience of someone setting up, being there, funding, leaving, and then being gone, you start to see different things as, something that won't work. And in Haiti, it was a great example. So many organizations flooded in after the earthquake. Most of those organizations aren't there anymore. And when we look at that market approach, and again, trying to learn from people and treating them as people, how do you want to be a dignified person? You get a lot of people that don't want handouts. People can desperately need handouts, but mentally, in a dignified way, not want to be receiving handouts off the generosity of other people. And this has really learned for us that recycling can literally be a way that you earn the things you need. And there's always a way to have it at a really easy way for someone to earn it, but someone's proud to bring home something they've earned to their family. And this is really, again, where that market approach is a way we can sustainably do it without ever leaving a community and having everyone proudly earn everything through the system.
So before opening up for Q&A, one more question, which is, how do you scale up even more that effort? What do you think it will take, right? Because this is a giant problem that you are trying to manage. And I realize that you don't like the word problem, but for the world. So what it will take for us to be able to actually kind of like move the needle in this problem? Do you think that it's more companies that need to embrace? So in some sense, you need to find more of those kind of like companies, Unilever and so forth, that will realize that this is a problem and they need to tackle it. Is it some type of like government intervention that will give tailwinds to that? Like, what do you think it will take?
Yeah, in our eyes, we always like to look at, if we got to wait for government, everything's usually going to take way too long to get there. But, again, we made a decision from day one that if it was something that was just happening one community at a time, it's a nice to have, it's a good thought, but it doesn't stop ocean plastic. The only way we stop ocean plastic, and the goal that I'm personally working on, is to get 1 billion participants working with us. So that includes people in these countries. It includes consumers asking for social plastic. It includes companies using social plastic and the staff asking those companies to be a part of what we're doing. So really, again, the only way we stop ocean plastic is by making social plastic and other problems as well, to have other social good solutions really be the gold standard to how businesses work, to how manufacturing is being done. And, again, we can't do it alone. We literally need to even get creative to how do we gather the world together to make this change. And so even the only way this happens is when we figure out and continuously figure out how do we scale the world's support and help. And then that's when it becomes essentially a human-supported cultural thing to just be part of the solution to ocean plastic. And that's really the way we're trying to tackle this.
People empowerment, basically. Empowering people.
People empowerment, and again, not assuming it's ever us who can do it on our own. Like, we need the world to be a part of it.
So any questions from participants down there?
Hi, thanks for your talk. It was really interesting. You mentioned that you guys employ community members in the areas you work in, and I was curious if you could speak a little bit more about community ownership and engagement over this, programs where you're working, and then also if you guys are looking at indicators such as like changes in average household income or other things to measure like tangibly how this is changing people's lives.
For sure. So definitely even one of our early learning lessons is, we can't hire a local staff and like local to like Vancouver and then send people around the world to go change lives locally. That model to me just doesn't work for so many reasons. That step one, every country we go into, we have a local country manager. We really, when possible, try to partner with different NGOs and different organizations already on the ground, already improving people's lives locally, already building a trust to then be able to bring programs that are self-run. So, we staff our own support, but really the locations you see are all run by independent entrepreneurs running a local business in their community and really being that local champion. And just in so many ways, it's always got to adapt to local language, local culture, and then bring in the solution. Otherwise, we're just fighting a weird battle. And for us, again, where we're very excited on the technology side is we'll continue to learn creatively what we can measure, how we could measure it, and then how we could use that measurement data as well. So, for us, it's a little straightforward on the recycling side of we can count the exact amount of pounds of plastic or bottles recycled. We can track the exact amount of participants, and then, we really, especially even being here at places like Harvard, when we look at different kind of partnerships, different kind of opportunities, we really can't be the world's best, leaders on what to track, but we can work with people who know exactly what we could track, how we could track it. And that's something we're actively seeking of, again, another way to gather someone to help us is to help reveal what else we could and should be tracking. So that'll always be on my radar.
My question is about the potential unintended consequences of this enterprise. I mean, it's amazing we're actually, trying to, help alleviate poverty, try to manage these plastics and, bring them to huge corporations that use them. But how do we actually ensure that we're not actually encouraging people to use more plastic for, let's say, to improve their income? Because I think, the whole plastic issue, the main solution is really to minimize plastic use and to limit our use to, areas where plastic is really unavoidable. So how do you kind of reconcile, that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the biggest things too, even, I'm always a big advocate that not everything in the world should be made of plastic. When we have an indestructible permanent solution, we shouldn't advertise it as a throwaway solution. Quite often in the areas that we work in, you always got to think there's a giant difference. So the price point would never be that I'm going to buy a dollar bottle so then I can recycle it, for the per pound thing. So sometimes, often, at a high level, it seems like won't people just buy plastic to recycle it? That would have an amazing value on recycling if that was ever the case. But the price points are so far away from that ever being a reason. And, one of the things we strive for through plastic recycling, and even in the communities, it becomes an education about plastic awareness as well. So, I can't say I'll have all the answers to how to ensure every community doesn't, accidentally pick up a consumption habit. But when we can combine an awareness of it, we'll continue to look at how does that become a platform for educating the world.
Over there.
Really great work. I kind of wanted to follow up on his question to see if you actually much the plastic that you collect actually decrease production of new plastic?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So we usually strive, it kind of goes case by case, but a lot of the companies that we deal with, we usually look to be the reason that they can use less new plastic in their product lines. So typically we work with a company that might have a product line that was 100% new plastic, then be the way that they can start by making it 5, 10, 25, 50% recycled plastic. And yeah, for us, there's such a shortage of plastic recycling on the planet that you do get some companies that are large enough that will say, once you can give me 100% guarantee that I'll always have a supply chain, I can use recycled plastic. If I can't make that kind of commitment. And this is where we scale our infrastructure to help companies meet those goals. And in a very genuine way, I've been incredibly thrilled with the amount of companies that have usually making 2020 commitments or beyond to start using at least, say, 25% recycled plastic all the way up to 50 and 100%. But those commitments can only be fulfilled if they can get a guaranteed supply chain. And where we really try to change the industry is I'm terrified of any supply chain that's hidden. It's unacceptable in food to have hidden supply chains where you have no clue how much a farmer was paid. But in the world of plastic, we can offer transparent, ethical supply chains where we can guarantee the value, which I really hope to create a new standard of what a recycled plastic is, and again, help companies meet those goals. So never easy, but it's the way we try it.
Sure.
Thank you. When a company like Henkel or whatever buys your plastic, do they then repurpose it into new products right in country in Haiti or whatever, or do they ship it overseas to do that, number one? And then number two, you've already mentioned the huge volatility in the price of plastic based as it is on the price of petroleum. So how is it that you folks guarantee some kind of stability in that price?
Yeah, the biggest thing that we do is when we deal with companies, we're technically not selling commodity plastic, we're selling social plastic, which we build in essentially the value into the plastic. And since we control the entire logistics chain, we can guarantee that the stakeholders are all received a very specific amount. But the big thing being that when we sell it at our social plastic prices, we can guarantee that there's that stability received in countries. So the larger the order, the more that price can always be offered. And we expand on the larger the sales, the more we expand the infrastructure to meet those sales.
So there's some kind of subsidy, financial subsidy underlying what you're doing?
It technically depends on the price. So sometimes it's just a matter of you can look at even just a standard plastic broker just trying to make as much margin as possible is different than a plastic broker trying to, at volume, guarantee the price that those collectors make. And so the price always has a lot of wiggle room to guarantee that without going anything extreme. It's really our goal to be able to offer it the exact same price of what someone would get it, but still guarantee that that ethical amount is given to the collector at the base. And you had a second part of the question that I'm blanking out on now.
It was about the price stability, how you were able to kind of give some assurances on that, given the volatility of the... Or maybe that you kind of answered that one, but...
And yeah, selling it outside the commodity market as its own separate product.
And selling it outside of the country that you collect.
Oh, the manufacturing is a great question. So one of the opportunities that we have is when we expand into new regions to really explore, especially with our clients, where do you manufacture? Is there a way to set up locations that we can recapture that program, essentially set up closed loop for their own products, with the goal of being as close to manufacturing. So that really guides our expansion. Haiti is a very challenging country in that there's very little manufacturing done in Haiti, but it really controls a lot of the direction that our goal is. How do we expand in a way to absolutely minimize any logistics chains?
How many countries are you in and how fast are you growing?
So we're in Haiti, Philippines, just starting up in Brazil right now. Later in the year will be India, Ethiopia. Just created a partnership with the Vatican where we'll be in the Vatican City as well as in Panama. And, growth-wise, it's pretty exponential as far as it's taken a long time to set up infrastructure, set up partnerships. And with the size of the partnerships we have, everything we're doing right now would be considered a very baby step one towards what we're working with even in these countries. So we've doubled in staff, I guess, in the last 3 months, and then are pretty much expecting 10 times revenue in the next year, and really hoping for that exponential curve from growing everything to do it. So growing very, very fast, and sometimes fast means very hard to predict what that means.
And then?
So Shaun, your work is really inspiring. Thank you. I'm wondering how you think about the problem of greenwashing in other companies. And obviously there is a huge market out there for goods that make people feel good to buy. And often the unintended consequences that people, this has been mentioned already, people don't think about their actual consumption habits. They just continue to buy according to what our society has told us we should, and happy people. And they feel better about it because they think they're doing good by buying the right thing. So I'm just curious how you think about corporations using sustainable plastic, social plastic rather, in a way that just enables them to continue to do business or even expand into the millennial market using social plastic, but not doing anything to actually reduce their overall use of plastic in their products, etc. And maybe that's a set of issues that that's more than you want to take on, but I'm just curious what you think about that.
Yeah, so the first part of the question, one that I think is super important when you talked about, essentially how do you prevent greenwashing? And we've really put our foot down into what a relationship with us works. So we've actually said no to a couple different publicly done projects because our thing is, again, are we having a lasting impact on a community, so an ongoing thing. So like when we have location centers, it's not a campaign when you change a community, for years to come. Honestly, if you get people to pick up plastic off a beach, volunteers put it into a very, 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 very small product line, you can argue that is a campaign, that is not a solution. So we have said no to anything that is not part of an ongoing solution. Really, again, just it's too important for the people that trust us to ever be involved in something that either at scale or at impact can simply just be treated as a campaign, which is quite often why we look at ongoing community investment, ongoing purchase of plastic, and an ongoing impact, which is very different than just a temporary cheapest price to get in the news. And I hope we live in a very different world of online transparency, social media, where just as when we have poor working conditions, things like that, a single cell phone picture can now topple, and people are changing the way manufacturing has been done. I think it's now getting to a world where it's very dangerous to do anything that borders on greenwashing, just because an entire reputation can be wiped out very quick. So we have a very strict policy to avoid anything that would ever do it, and we're happy turning down money to not be a part of a campaign and only be a part of change.
We ran out of time, but we have the reception to ask Shaun many more questions. So I want to thank everybody for coming, and of course Shaun being here. Wonderful work.